Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the calling from within. This is a very interesting topic because it involves a journey that many spiritual seekers eventually recognize. It's a moment when a quiet, private relationship with God begins asking to be lived out loud. And my guest today is Shayne, a host of 111 or 1111 HQ podcast and a student of the Urantia book for more than 30 years. What began as a deeply personal path, reading the life and the teachings of Jesus and quietly growing in faith, has gradually unfolded into something larger through synchronicities, spiritual experiences, and a growing sense of service. Together, we're exploring the mystery of those moments when life seems guided by an unseen hand and what it means to trust the call that comes within. So welcome, Shayne. It's a pleasure having you here.
How's it going, buddy? Good to be here.
I'm excited about this topic because I think we have a lot of experiences that we can talk about, and so ever since we talked about this, I think there's a lot to cover. So this is going to be interesting. So welcome once more, and well, let's just dive into it, and let's go. With the first segment, we're going to be talking about the seed within. What do we have? What is that spiritual path? So what does it look like to carry a spiritual path quietly for decades? It's not something to promote, but as something that simply shapes who you are. In this first segment, Shayne takes us back to the beginning, a 13-year-old boy receiving the Urantia book from his stepfather and beginning a lifelong relationship with the Jesus he discovered inside the pages. For more than 30 years, that journey unfolded privately through a personal reflection, spiritual growth, and deepening friendship with the Master. This is the story of a seed planted early and how that seed slowly grew into a life of quiet faith. So tell us a bit about your story, about your path in this unfolding of your path.
Yeah, it feels like a long journey, and in recent years, I've really been looking back and trying to think about and write down, document those things that stand out in my past as being really significant to personal spiritual growth. And one of the earliest sort of big moments that I remember happened when I was around 4 years old and I had a near-death experience.
Okay.
And it wasn't necessarily your typical near-death. For people who are familiar with near-death experiences, you often hear about this out-of-body experience. I didn't have that. What happened essentially was um, I was playing at the neighbor's house.
Mm-hmm.
My parents had gone off to do some sort of errand, and they actually wanted me to go with them, but I wanted to stay at the neighbor's house and play with the kids. And so they sort of reluctantly allowed me to stay home alone, or stay at the neighbor's kids, or at the neighbor's house. And we were playing hide and go seek, and I ended up having an accident with a fence that cut my arm.
Oh, really?
And I cut it on the underside where your arteries are. And when this happened, I remember looking at it and just being so horrified and scared. Obviously,
Definitely.
fear just rips through you. And what I remember, though, is that I instantly started praying to God,
Okay.
reaching out to God, saying, please don't let me die. I just kept
Okay.
repeating that, please don't let me die. I'm not ready. This is what's going through my mind. I'm not ready to die. I've so much to do in my life. And then immediately after that, my mind went to my parents and what they were going to feel coming home and realizing that their child had died and that they didn't even want to leave me home alone in the first place, and just that tragedy, what they were going to go through. And that caused me to reach out even harder, even more, like, please don't do this to my parents. Like,
Yeah.
so long story short, the father of the child I was playing with, he did a makeshift tourniquet on my arm, threw me in his car, and drove me to the hospital. And um, when they got me to the hospital, they brought me in and took off. It was a tea towel essentially that he had put around my arm.
Yeah.
And when he took it off and the doctors were there, my arm wasn't bleeding. And my arm was open from about here to here.
Really?
Um, and at the time, there didn't seem to be anything miraculous. To me, it was just this terrible event that I was going through. But looking back in retrospect, that seemed to open something in me because in that moment, my level of faith was so strong. I had no doubt that God was real in that moment
Hmm.
and God had the power to do something about it. Um, but, when you're a child, life goes on. This was just an injury. I recovered, I healed from it. Um, And then the next thing that I would say was significant is when I was 12 years old. I was right about to turn 13 years old,
Okay.
and I was at school, and a friend who was a Christian told me that I was going to go to hell if I didn't accept Jesus.
Okay.
And, this sort of sent me into a spiral of fear.
Okay.
What does that mean? Right? Like, is that real? Is hell real? Am I going to go there? What does it mean to be saved? All these questions going through, my young 12-year-old
Yeah.
brain. And what it caused me to do was to reach out again to God. I said a sincere prayer, essentially saying, God, if you're real, I need to know. I need you to show me. Um, I was longing to be taken out of this place of suffering that I felt myself in with this fear. And it was shortly after, I don't know exactly how long after, let's just say maybe a month. On my 13th birthday, my stepfather gave me the Rancha book.
On your 13th birthday. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that was my birthday present from my stepfather.
Okay.
And his advice to me was to read part 4 of the book because it's the easiest to
Hmm.
read, right, for a child. And so I did that almost out of necessity, right? Not a lot of
Yeah.
people when they read the book, they'll start on the foreword or something that maybe is really intellectual and could cause them to get discouraged and stop.
Yeah.
But the fact that part 4 is just the story, story of
Exactly.
Jesus's,
It's a narrative.
yeah. So it was this nice story, and I didn't realize it at the time, but what it was doing was taking away that fear.
Definitely. Yeah.
So now it definitely feels like an answer to that prayer.
It's interesting. I mean, the experience that you had, especially when you were young, the near death experience, and what was going through your head when you were at that situation, and I guess, I mean, the injury must have been really big. I mean, from what you were telling me, and the father or the parent, rushing you to the hospital, but then miraculously that was healed. I mean, that's something. I mean, what happened there? I mean, I'm just curious about this.
I don't really have an answer. You know,
Okay.
the thing is, this is something I didn't really recognize as potentially being a miracle. I mean, really, I don't know that it was a miracle. Maybe it was just not bad enough of an injury for me to die. But I can tell you when I experienced that, the feeling was, I know
Yeah.
I'm going to die. And I even now I have a hard time believing that a miracle could happen just because of the fact that bad things happen to good people all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it implies a sense of responsibility. And I don't mind that responsibility, but I think
No, definitely. Definitely, I think there's. I mean, as we know and we understand. I mean, it's we're not alone, not on the in the universe or even in this planet. So, I mean, there's a lot of celestial agencies, and I think that in many times they intervene through us. And I have a story, and I have a lot of things to talk about. But I have something that the power of the mind. This is something that comes to me. When I was probably sort of that age, between 4 or 5 years old. Remember, my cousins used to play with a couple of squares, buildings
Mhm.
blocks. This I'm talking about early '80s, and they would put figure inside the box, and they would trick me. These were older cousins into saying that they were magically passing that figure to the other box, and they did something, a trick, and they just fooled me. But in my mind, a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, that was real to me. That was something that was happening, and I remember. I don't know if this is real or not. I can't recall, but I remember playing that, and I remember that I could move the piece from one box to the other. I don't know if that was, that's just have that memory, or it really happened. But anyways, I mean, this is something kind of relating that, and I'm the interesting thing that you said, or I wanted to ask about is the feeling about your parents. That what you're saying. Kind of a felt thing. You felt guilt. What did you feel? And I can understand. I also had a situation once in the ocean where I didn't read the waves right, and I almost drowned. Well, not drowned, but I was faced with a situation with waves, and I said, "Shoot, I'm going to give a bad, news to my parents." But how was that feeling? Well, how did that make you feel, and move your faith? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, it's just profound sadness for
Okay.
them and the unfairness of it. This accident that just happened, that and the drastic change that would happen in their lives, and these things that were going to be taken away from both of us because I made this silly mistake and hurt myself.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I would just say, yeah, profound sadness is what I felt.
It's interesting what you're telling me about when you got your entry book, and I think you got it at a very early age. 13 years old. I got it at I had just turned 20. So
Mm.
I mean, 13, as in many traditions, it's the dawn of manhood. That's where you have the bar mitzvah. That's where that's where we have the rite of passage from boyhood to manhood, and that's where usually, and a lot of what I teach in the Mayan mathematics, the human matrix pattern, there's what is called the harmonics, and it's a set of 4 steps that, or like 4 archetypes that you go through. And actually, there's the sequence. It always tells you that that is the age, 13, when you start looking for wisdom. That's where you start looking for God, when you start identifying with something, and you start trying everything out. That's why when you get into your teens. So it's an interesting situation. And what I mean, that story, what did it do to you? I mean, apart from what you're saying, and I can relate to that. When I read the ancient book, and especially again in that part, I lost fear in a lot of stuff. A lot of things that previously weren't explained to me from God, from the church, about Jesus, and I found the answers here. That
Mhm.
really gave me a lot of peace, and took a lot of the fear. So I don't know if
Mhm.
that's something that you felt, and what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was so comforting,
Yeah.
right? You can't put these things into words. I didn't know that what I needed was my fear to be reduced. I was longing, you're right. That's such a formative age, and you have big questions.
Yeah.
But what was happening internally was my fear was being reduced, and I was being comforted by the story of Jesus's life. That was
Okay.
kind of like the early thing that was happening. And then it just, I continued on with the reading, and then I started, diving into some other parts, which started opening up my mind even more, right? It's kind of like there's more questions than answers,
Yeah.
right? You just
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the Urantia book. It's the other day I had a podcast with Don Clementine, and that was what he said. You know, there's all the questions that you have and that you didn't know you had are here. You know, and that's something that it takes a lot of the fear away, and I think that's something very
Mm,
important. And one of the things I take away from, and we're gonna maybe be talking more about your path, but one of the things that you find in the Urantia book is that all that fear based goes away, and you start, you know, doing fear-based actions or thoughts or habits, and you start instead of that, since it's based on love, you start co-creating and being participative in the cosmos, in the unfoldment of the universe, and what the book tells us about the concept of the supreme. You know how we're actualizing and everybody's contributing to this, and then it becomes something that's you willfully do, because it's a you're part of a team, so that's something interesting. And how did this make you come to? I mean, and we're gonna go dive deeper in the next segments, but how did you get from there to this point? As you were telling us, I mean, a lot of formative events, these two especially. But how did you get to where you are now?
that's a great question. How did I get to this point?
Yeah,
Sometimes you don't even really know
exactly.
yourself, right? It's like you look back and you just go, "Wow, I didn't even know what
Yeah.
was happening at that time." It happens. And for me, I can remember very early on my excitement with the Rancha book and kind of what was happening to me internally. You want to share this with
Hmm.
people, right? And I remember talking to some of my school friends about it, and it was just like,
Yeah.
no one, no
Whatever.
one, no one was on that same
Yeah.
mindset as me, and that kind of caused me, I think, to shut down
Okay.
about it. And so the Rancha book for a long time was just a tool, a personal tool for personal growth, right? I
Okay.
didn't
Interesting. Yeah.
my parents, again, my parents are readers of the
Yeah.
book, and they would have study groups at the house. They were very active in the Rancho community, but I never took part in that. I didn't go to the study groups. It was just I'd be off in my room reading.
Yeah.
I didn't care to be
Well,
social with it.
it was a more of a personal journey than a social or collective journey. Yeah, which is it. I mean, I think we go through different. In my case, I went through different phases and on and off. I think this last phase has been really active, but yeah, I can
Yeah.
understand.
Well, that's just it. You go through these phases in life, and so it's kind of been off and on for me, where, there'll be a year where I'm reading lots, and then it's like a year where I barely
Mm,
touched the book,
It
right? And you
cycles. It cycles. Yeah, that's.
yeah.
Things have to sink in. I think. I mean, it's like a layers, and
Mhm.
once you really process it and it becomes part of you, then you kind of take it to the next level. That's something that I
Yeah.
realized about the book. I mean, a lot of the parts where I read it, and I started from the beginning. I was 20 when I started, actually, and started from forward, and there were things that I couldn't really understand. It was like, well, I'll just go forward and see if I'll get it afterwards. And actually, I got to different parts way further down where it kind of started to connect, and then suddenly, boom, 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 all the connections started to form. So
Mhm.
I think that's part, as we're going to be talking late, in the next segments. I mean, the patterns that are in the universe, the like you're saying, you said, how did you get to this, and you suddenly see, in retrospect, all the different situations and moments in your life, and how they're actually, woven, and that's what I like about the what I teach in the human matrix pattern. It's more like a song. It's a melody where you have,
Yeah.
the harmony playing, but then you have, the melody that can change, and even the harmony can change, but it's still the structure
Yeah.
of the song. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's these different vicissitudes and these ups and downs. But I mean, to answer your question, it feels like I had this long down period where I was not really active
Hmm.
with my spirituality, but it always felt nagging. It When I wasn't in that phase, it would always feel like there's something I'm
Hmm.
not doing. I'm called to do something, and the question is, what is that? And for me, going through life, whatever job I was working in, it just never felt like the thing for me. It was never a passion project, but I
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
felt like there is something there. And I had a profound thing happen to me in 2018. um, and that was that my wife had gone to see a psychic medium, and her session was recorded.
And
Do you
actually,
want to hold that
this
one?
is
Do you
yeah,
want to hold that?
exactly. Stay tuned for the next segment, and Shane's going to tell us all about that situation. Stay tuned. In this second segment, Shane is going to tell us his particular situation in this particular sign, and this is the signs in the universe and the unseen hand. So at some point along the path, many people begin noticing something curious. Moments of synchronicity that feel too precise to be random. A number that appears again and again. The right person arriving at exactly the right time. Doors opening just when they are needed most. And in this segment, we'll explore Shane's experience with the number 1111 and the deeper question it arises. Could unseen spiritual agencies be quietly helping guide the course of human lives? From synchronicity to the mysterious ways described in the Urantia teachings, we explore the possibility that the universe may be far more coordinated and far more personal than we usually imagine. So, Shane, tell us about this story.
Yeah, well, it sort of began in 2018 when my wife had gone to get a reading from a psychic medium.
Okay.
And so it was recorded. And when she came home, she let me listen to the recording. And there was a number of things in the reading that she got that didn't necessarily make sense to her. Didn't uh,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't obvious, I guess, to her
Yeah.
what this was. And when I listened to it, I knew exactly what it was. It
Okay.
was as if this section of the conversation was meant for me.
Okay.
Specifically, I had a friend who passed away in high school.
Just a question. What type of reading was it? What did they use for the reading? What was it?
Um, this it was psychic medium named Kelly, who I've actually interviewed now on my
Okay.
channel 1111 HQ. But you just sit in the room and she just reads,
Okay. So got it.
so she can connect.
Okay. Okay.
The idea
Okay.
is she can sense or connect to
Okay.
deceased
Got it.
people or
Got it. Got it.
energy, or yeah. Um, so this experience of listening to this and having this internal knowing, like I know
Mm-hmm.
what this is and it's meant for me. Obviously, I have to go see this woman and get a reading for myself. So that's exactly what I did.
But you felt, I mean, you said that this is something from a deceased friend that you felt, a message that you felt that was coming through?
Yeah. Yeah. It came
Okay.
through in a very specific way that really there's no way somebody would know this
Okay.
information, detailed information.
Okay. Got it.
Um, so about a month prior to going to see Kelly, the psychic medium, um, I started experiencing the 1111 phenomenon.
Okay.
I had no idea what that was. I had never heard of that. And for anyone who's not familiar, it is when you see a number over and over again
Mm-hmm.
in the strangest ways that are not random.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah. Yeah.
feel very significant.
Yeah. Very
Um,
precise.
yeah. So for me, it was 1111, and I was not just seeing it on a clock. I would get a receipt, and it would be on the receipt
Yeah.
right after seeing it a couple minutes before in another way. And then the big one for me was I was thinking about somebody, that I hadn't talked to in for maybe 10 years.
Okay.
And I get a text from that person when I'm thinking about it, and the time is 11:11. And that was like, okay, what is going on here? That's
Okay.
kind of when I became conscious of this thing happening.
That it wasn't just your mind being aware of the number. It was something that it was coordinated and yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it made me very curious.
Okay.
Um, so almost immediate, probably within days of that happening, I go get this reading, and the reading's wonderful. A lot of the things she told me resonated, made sense. I trusted that she has the abilities that that she claims she has.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is my session was being recorded as well.
Okay.
And so we got to the end, and she said, "Okay, we're done." And my phone was laying on her end table, and I reached over and I pressed stop.
Okay.
And the phone was between us, and she's looking at my phone, and she like grabs my hand and she says, "Do you see that number a lot?" And I look at my phone, and I can send you a screenshot of it because it's still in my phone. Um, it's 1 hour, 11 minutes, 11 seconds. And I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, like, this has been for the past month, I've been seeing ones, 11, 11."
So this was three 11s.
Yeah, it was
11,
1,
11.
11, 11, just straight ones.
Oh, what? Oh, straight ones.
1
Okay,
hour,
got it.
11 minutes, 11 seconds. And the
Okay.
fact that she asked me that was like, "Oh my why, like, what does this mean? Please tell me more." Because I knew nothing about
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
and the information that she gave me was essentially that I should start paying attention to the synchronicities because the
exactly.
universe seems to be trying to get my attention, and that could lead me into something. There could be something serviceable uh, if I follow that path. And so I took that seriously. I started kind of dove back into my spirituality because I felt like this was a time in the year previous that it was sort of on the back burner.
Yeah.
It reinvigorated me. And that, um, right after that, the 11:11 phenomenon died down. It's like I got the message.
Exactly. No, 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 and that's interesting. I mean, because everything that you're saying, this is this. I mean, I've had the same experience. I mean, and the 11:11. Just to point out, it's like the universal synchronistic number. Because that is where everything is equal. So I believe, and just like she said, the universe. And this is the way that the different beings or the agencies are communicate with us. Many times what we have to see is that we want to have signs. We want to have messages. We want to see, want to make sure that we're in the right way, because all the time we have decisions and we have to make up our minds, and many times it's not a black or white. It's either or, and you can't see the clear answer. So I believe that synchronistic events like this, and sometimes that they teach you or they point you into some way. That's what it is. It kind of tells us you're in the right way. I always, when I'm working on something, on a project, and I become aware, and suddenly the numbers start popping up. One of the numbers that for me works a lot is 306. There's a long story about that number, but 306 is one of those numbers. And anytime I see it in license plates, I see, yeah, like you're saying, the configuration of maybe an addition. I'm making something, and suddenly the result is that number. It's like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting. And I don't know. um well, by the way, talking about synchronicity, in what I believe in what I do with the human matrix pattern, which is the law of time. I mean, the universe is working, operating within a perfect structures, let's say, and although we have free will, and not only us as humans, but different beings, and the entire universe kind of operates in an autonomous way. You know, everybody has a job to do, but within a certain frame, it's a certain structure. So this is what it is, you know. And once you start to understand that there's a structure and that we operate within the structure, you kind of start seeing where this is pointing, you know, and you start realizing. And when you see in retrospect, which is what you were saying at the beginning in the other segment, is you see how the events, you know, are starting to add up. And I don't know if you ever if you heard, have you experienced the dark side of the rainbow? You know about that? About
No,
Pink Floyd
no. Oh,
I mean, and this is something interesting, and maybe if our audience wants to do this experiment, but this is a theory, and let me just sum it up. If you see the movie Wizard of Oz from the 19, I mean, before it was the Dawn of Color, actually, that movie, and you play the Dark Side of the Moon from Pink Floyd. It has such a precise synchronistic everything, you know. Sometimes the synchronicities are in the dialogue, in the verse, or in the vocals, what's happening. Sometimes it's the music of what's happening, you know. But it's if you see it, it's too precise to see that. And there's a whole thing. You have to put it at the certain roar of the lion, and it goes through. But you have to see it. And what I believe is, you know, what it tells us is that time is radial. No, it's not linear. I mean, we're kind of, and we're not static. It kind of goes into spiral, you know, and where time is compressing, it's moving forward. And what it's saying us is that we operate within these patterns, within these things. So
mm,
as long as we're aware of it, and we understand these patterns, and we understand the signals, and the calls from the universe, will be more attentive, and we'll be more responsive, and more, you know, we'll know what happens. So I don't know, what's your take on
yeah.
all this?
Well, yeah, and that's the key is, first of all, paying attention, recognizing it, and then asking where where am I supposed to go from here? Actually inviting more of it from the universe. It's like, okay, I
Hmm.
got it. What? Show me more. What's
Where?
next? Show me my path,
Yeah.
right? And that's exactly what happened for me. And it's amazing to look back in retrospect. And when you try to explain these things to people who haven't necessarily experienced it, it can sound really crazy, right? Like just this idea of the universe is communicating with you through synchronicities, but
Yeah.
put it to the test, try it, see what happens.
It makes all the sense once you really live it, and you see the results, because I think that's what happens. You know, you start seeing the progress and the results. And in your case, I mean, we're seeing this call to action, this call to something. So what was it specifically? What was that calling? And this is really interesting,
Yeah.
because you're one of the, I think, the youngest people that started reading the Urantia book. At least that I know.
Yeah.
Usually they're older.
Oh, for sure. It was, I could always understand the significance of the book.
Okay.
And I always felt like life is so important. Again, this is something happening internally with me having to do with service or a calling or what
Okay.
do
Yeah.
I, it's like I had this spiritual foundation. I, I'm so fortunate that I haven't dealt with things like depression. But I think that's because I had this rock solid
Yeah.
base to build off of. But the question was, what do I build? Right? What am I going to build? And this was a, this was, it only feels like I've been answering that question in recent years where it's
Okay.
really starting to get validated. But what ended up happening, and I'll try not to get into like crazy details about it, but when I did have this psychic reading, the other thing she told me is that I could do what she does. That
Okay.
I, her feeling is that I have these latent abilities that I am not paying attention to, and that I should start leaning into that and trying to discover, uh, discover and learn. And I, in 2020, we had to deal with the pandemic.
Hmm.
but I had a premonition that that was going to happen. But I didn't know it was a pandemic. It was just that this big life-changing event that kind of reshapes the world and everybody's
Yeah.
involved in it. Um,
You didn't know what it was, but it's something was gonna happen. Like
right,
Obi-Wan when they destroy Alderaan, that there was a great disturbance in the Force.
right. Yeah, exactly. And, this is the type of thing that's really hard to articulate because it's this internal feeling. And it wasn't until afterwards that it was like, oh, like I knew it, but I didn't know it.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what
This
is
is it.
that?
This is it. That was it. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. But what ended up happening after that, after I had that realization, it really kind of kicked me in the butt. And that is when I started becoming social in my spiritual life, reaching out to other
okay.
people. I saw some people in the Urantia community who were doing some things that I found really interesting, and I was excited about. Uh, Derek Samaras has
Yeah.
his channel on YouTube, and I discovered that, and I was just soaking it up and thought this was amazing, sharing all these stories of people doing these things in the Rancho Book community, and I started reaching out to people, building relationships, and it felt like things were more aligned. Like I was finally
Yeah.
starting to move in the right
They come
direction.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. And the second big thing that happened to me, which actually involved 1111 again, was I'm very busy. I run a business, I have a family, and I love reading, but I don't have time to anymore just because of how busy life is. But I listen to books on Audible, the app on my
Okay.
phone. And I had a book that kept getting, it was constantly on my feed of recommended reading. And it's called
Okay.
UFO of God by Chris
Okay.
Bledsoe. And I'm, I've always been, I won't say obsessed, I've always been fascinated by the UFO UAP topic. And this has been since
Yeah.
I was a child. But this book keeps getting recommended to me, but I'm not sort of not paying attention to it, not looking into it, and certainly not buying it. But the one day my phone is lying down and it makes a sound like I've got a message. I flip it over. My phone's already open without me putting in my code. It's open to Audible. UFO of God is there and the time is 11:11. And I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I got it. Bye.
I'll read it. Yeah. 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 Well, that's the universe. I mean, this is the shoot. You have I have a lot of stuff that I want to and what I've been realizing from this conversation. I mean, there's a lot of similarities in our stories. Maybe not at the same age, but
Mhm,
similar situations. I had one of my disturbance in the force, great disturbance in the force moments or situations, or the biggest one that I had was in 9/11. And
mm,
I mean, I lived in Mexico, and that time I was in San Antonio, Texas. I was actually there when 9/11 happened, and I remember this was my grandparents' apartment, and I mean that time I was I was sleeping in the sofa, and I remember watching the Sunday night football game and everything, and that night around 2 in the morning, I woke up and I was really petrified. It was just a big fear, like when you're a kid and you can't explain, the fear. I couldn't really put wrap my hand around it. I almost ran to my parents' room, but, the day after I remember because I turned on the TV and I saw the towers in smoke, and that I mean
mm,
I don't have to tell you the rest, but I remember that was one of the times that I could say I felt that the presence of demonic presence. I don't want to say the devil, but it was
mm.
like evil.
Yeah, that
It was
negative
like evil
energy.
was loose.
Yeah.
Yeah, something evil. I felt something evil, but anyway, so let's stop this right here on this because we're gonna dive deep into what this is all about, what it means, and what celestial agencies are around there. So stick around and let's find out and let's see what it's all about. In this next segment, we're gonna see what this all means, what the stories of Shayne's life have led him to come to this point. What, you know, not only him, but you know, different people around the world and what's happening. I mean, needless to say that we can just look at the news or look outside of our window and see what's going on. So here in this segment, we're going to bridge the storm. These are the bridges in the storm. So we're living in a time when the world often feels chaotic, socially, politically, and spiritually. But moments of crisis have always been catalysts for awakening. In this final segment, we explore what it means to answer the call to serve during the times of like these. Shayne shares how he's stepping beyond his comfort zone to become a bridge, connecting the Urantia community with a wider world of seekers who are searching for meaning, truth, and a living relationship with God. Because sometimes the greatest spiritual work isn't preaching or persuading, it's simply living authentically enough that others feel inspired to begin their own journey. And this is something we can relate. I think we both have a podcast, and we kind of were brought to this point. So what can you tell us? You know, what's this conclusion, and what's your service that you're bringing?
Yeah, well, so I've started this YouTube channel, 1111 HQ, and the idea is to share stories of spiritual growth and spiritual awakenings, as well as to promote spiritual values. Because there are a lot of people who are going through spiritual awakening right now. It just seems to be, you know, eh, probably because it's in response to what is happening in the world right now. But I keep saying it, a spiritual awakening can be so destabilizing for people and confusing. And um,
It's a paradigm shift. It breaks everything. Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, it was this um, trying to normalize this, perhaps. Just when you share these stories, and people are often afraid to talk about them because either they're deeply personal or there might be some sort of social stigma around it. But that's really unfortunate because you should be able to speak your truth and have a community, a safe community around you to share these things. So that was the idea. I was meeting a lot of people who were having these wild stories of spiritual awakening, and I love listening. It's one thing I'm much better at listening than talking, I feel. I was telling that story about this book that was recommended to me, UFO of God by Chris Bledsoe. And when I read that book, to bring it right back to the first part of this conversation, where I had this cut on my arm, there's a story in that book about a similar thing happening. And it
Okay.
happens to Chris Bledsoe's dog. And when I read that, that's when I really, for the first time, stopped and was like, wow, did something happen back then? Like, was that something more than just, could it have been a miracle? In addition, there was a number of other things in that book that felt very significant. And it was like, in the same way, when I received the Urantia book, there's a knowing and a um, something that's resonating deeply within. I had that same experience when I read Chris Bledsoe's book. And for
Okay.
anyone who doesn't know, he's an experiencer of orb phenomenon. Uh,
Yeah.
lights. He's seeing lights in the sky, and again, this was a topic that I was always fascinated by, and so I had to learn more. I had to dive into this, and it ended up leading me to go to North Carolina to meet him and his family. His son Ryan has a podcast called Bledsoe Said So, and amazingly, I'm now friends with Ryan. I got to go to the Monroe Institute with him. And for anybody who doesn't know, the Monroe Institute is a place in the US and Virginia where they do consciousness studies. So it dovetailed with the
Okay.
information that Kelly, the psychic medium, had told me.
Okay.
And when I went there, I had this rapid expansion of psychic abilities. So precognition, remote viewing, all these things that were there, kind of this low level, you know, but
Dormant, let's say.
dormant. Yeah, that's great. Um, Absolutely life changing.
In your process, I mean, you're getting to this point right now, and you're awakening all these abilities, and so what was that? Bledsoe brought what, in his story, and what did that change? I mean, apart from these abilities, did that take you into looking into more of that? What was the life changer
Yes,
there?
right. So I saw a connection between the experience he's going through and some of the things that are mentioned in the Urantia book.
Okay,
Specifically with, they talk about the planetary reserve core,
okay,
right?
and you have
Or
to
the reserve.
explain that
Yes, I
for
know that's a
people that do
technical
not.
term. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but it's important because it's part of the story.
Yeah, yeah,
But
definitely. And
essentially,
this is very important. And this is something that once you understand, I think it sheds a lot of light into a lot of things.
yeah.
But please tell
So
us.
essentially, what it says is there is a group of human beings on the planet who our celestial agencies are directly working with, because these people can, you could say, perform a certain task or a job that is essential to humanity or serves in a time of planetary crisis.
The
And
the famous kings that suddenly, changed it, or the famous leaders and the famous, or not even, not only the greatest leaders, but suddenly points in history where if that wouldn't have happened, if that person wasn't there at that time doing that thing at that moment, history
right,
would have been totally different, right?
yeah, yeah. And so the the Rancha book explains it as, so when this information was presented, or this paper was written, there was less than 1,000 of these people on the planet. And when I was younger, I always found that this was so interesting. I was like, I would love to know who these people are and what they're doing. It's like, it's fascinating, right? And what could these planetary crises be? What are these events where we need these
Yeah.
people, right? So I was fascinated by it. And when I heard the Bledsoe story, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I believe personally that he's a member of the Reserve Corps. I have
Okay.
no way of proving that, but something felt there was a connection
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Um, and it's been really validated for me personally, for what we see happening in the world right now.
Yeah. The signs are too clear to be confused, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's very
Okay.
safe to say we are in a planetary crisis right now.
Well, and this is an interesting topic because I mean, another. I know I revert because, but it has to do with everything, and that's the way I understand it. What happened in 2012, the famous end of the world that the Mayans predicted, and there was a big fat and everything that did happen. But let me explain what happened. The way they like I was explaining, time is radial, and we have it's in a spiral, and it's not that we're starting somewhere and we're ending nowhere, starting nowhere, ending nowhere. That's the linear time. But this is radial. So, there's cycles. But the interesting thing is it's like a cone, it's like a spiral where, time can kind of compress. And that's why, if, the perception of time, as we start from, just imagine this: when you're a baby, the first day of your life, and when you're born, that's your whole existence. The second day,
Hmm.
it becomes half, and that's why you feel that time is speeding up, because that's our concept. So
Yeah.
in reality, and this is, if we're talking about synchronicity and personal synchronicity, the universe operates within synchronicity, because it's like a big engine. It has to be, everything and firing up at the exact time in order to function. So you get to these times, and how it explains it is that time is compressing. So before, we had long periods of time, long periods of evolution, but each time it's getting compressed and compressed and compressed. So what really happened in 2012 is that humanity became of age. We kind of graduated from being not accountable, being pre-adults, and that now we are accountable. And it's interesting because that kind of ties in to what happened in the celestial battle of the Lucifer rebellion. Every Back in the day, and we're not going to get into those details, but back in the day, all the different celestial agencies and all the personalities had to choose sides, but we were too young to choose sides. We were kids as a humanity, but now we become of age, and now it's the time to choose sides. So look at what
Mm,
happened starting from 2012, when that's actually time stopped. That sequence stopped at 2012, and we're in a period which they call eschaton, which is not the end of the time, but not upheaval, but a change in a lot of things. I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but that's what if you look at it, what happened in 2012, that was the dawn of social media. That was everything that kind of detonated. And you look at the timeline from then, what has happened, and we're at this stage
mm,
where we're personally choosing, and we're collectively choosing, and it becomes a very polarized situation where everything is black and white, and good is coming out, but evil is also coming out, and you're seeing those shadows.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's my explanation for where we are.
right. Yeah, yeah. I think we're in a time right now where the darkness is really being exposed. And I think that this convergence for me personally that I've been talking about, it's all connected. So this topic of UAPs and
Hmm.
UFOs that's been going on
Everything is
for
connected.
yeah, for sure. But the what I've discovered personally, from like my opinion, is that that phenomenon, whatever that is connected to nuclear weapons and concern over
Definitely,
humanity using
definitely.
these weapons. And we're seeing, for people who are paying attention, much more increased activity of things being witnessed in the skies. But it's unfortunate that we do live in a secular materialist world where a lot of people just unfortunately do not seem to be aware or awake to these things that are happening. It makes it feel like it's being willfully hidden, right?
And that's what we were talking about, being aware, in life, you have to be aware. That's being living and being conscious, and it has to be a habit. And it's not only aware of what's in front of you, but beyond what's there. And I think and I agree with you. We're in a very special time. These planetary reserve corps. I totally agree. And actually, going back to my human matrix pattern, what I was telling you about the harmonics, the last harmonic, and this is like the highest as you go up in these. Let's say in your evolution, in your personal evolution, when you get to the fifth harmonic, is when you're now privileged with the task of aiding and being
Mm.
and working with the celestials, because you've been through, in many cases, a lot of people that go beyond this. I mean, they had the born again situations, or they were from being children. There's a story the other day I watched about the biography about Winston Churchill, and he knew from being a
Mm.
kid, that he had to save the world. And if it wasn't for him, I mean, he was the one that really stood there and kind of eased the regression of Nazism back into in the Europe. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know where we would be at. But this is very important, how we contribute, to what the unfoldment of what's happening. I like this topic, and like we're saying, the cosmic synchronicities of what's going on. And what I've been noticing, and what's really interesting is everything is falling. The preconceived concepts are falling. Of course, we've been contending against, we're not against, but we're questioning a lot of organized religion, and all the dogmas, and the different structures, and we've questioned that for quite some time. But nowadays we're questioning the government, we're questioning the structures, questioning the whole fabric of our institutions, our human institutions. So I think that is what's leading a lot of people to, where do you go? I mean, if you do not go to God, if you do, I mean, we live in a secular world, like you said, materialistic world, but you have to go beyond it, because if not, I mean, you and I have been fortunate to have the Urantia book to guide us, but a lot of people that are out there and do not know a path, maybe that's why all of this is happening, and not maybe. I mean, a lot of the people that are being called to serve, are serving in this capacity because that is what is needed.
We are called to spiritually evolve, right?
Hmm.
So when you get to this situation in the world where it it's like a pressure cooker,
Hmm.
it just feels like things are about to burst. And I don't know, like for me, realizing this calling or this path of service, I don't feel like I'm doing something big here. It's a small thing trying
Hmm.
to lovingly encourage our brothers and sisters to think about these things, consider them. And I think one of the biggest things I've been motivated by is the simple message that Jesus talked about that
Exactly.
happens to be in To Bring It Back, part 4 of the Urantia book, um, that he taught friendship with God, right? And
Exactly.
that's so simple.
That's
Um,
that's the key, and that's
yeah,
exactly so simple.
and when you take that seriously and you're willing to reach out, just watch how life changes, right? Like we're down here, and as long as you're willing to give that up grasp, there is a top that gives you the down grasp, and it's
Exactly.
such a beautiful thing to experience in your life. And I think for like you and I, we've sort of experienced these things, and that's why we're called to do this, whatever it is, having a podcast and to share these things.
Yeah, that and like you say, it's all about sharing. It's not just preaching. One of the things that I like about the service right now is demonstrating that although we live in a secular world, in a materialistic world, and we have the vicissitudes of life, raising a family in this troubled world is not a lot at all easy. But we go beyond that, and we go. Life is more. And not. We have a lot of bad moments, but it's understanding that God is beyond that. It's just a situation, and when you have those values and that the those ideals, and that's a lot of what I tell. We don't have to talk about the same God and have the same image, but once we have the same values, the same ideals, the same moving forward, I mean, that's where we all converge.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's all about alignment with
Yeah.
spirit values, because when you do align with that, suffering is reduced. Yeah.
Well, Shane, it's been really interesting. The time just flew. I mean, I think this is the first. I mean, next time I'll go visit you at your home, and then we can do
Yeah,
this
yeah, we'll
back
have
and
to have
forth.
you on.
Definitely, definitely. But I think, I mean, a lot of good conversations. I mean, we touched on a lot of different topics, and I think we can keep these conversations going. So, thanks a lot for visiting and stopping by. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
And for all of our viewers, remember to subscribe daily, basically every week, so you can follow us with new episodes and new segments. And if you like what we talked about, just tell people that there might be something interesting for them to learn about. So until next time, I'm Santiago Kneeland. Take care and carpe diem. On the Divine Within podcast, we share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.